Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Full Time is presented by the Game Sports Podcast and powered by 91N. You are listening to Season 4, Episode 8 of Full Time. I am your host, Daniel Scarpino. With me is our co-host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Remind our listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Happy New Year, everyone. We welcome you back to Full Time for our first show of the 2024 calendar year. We are here today to have our first show of the new year. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Scarps, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, man. Thank you for that. And in today's show, we'll be talking about some news in the MLS. We'll preview the January transfer window. We'll talk Europe's Big Five, and we'll highlight some key points across England's domestic cup competitions. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91N. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. We begin today's show by talking about the MLS, and more specifically, a big move that has taken place in the MLS. The biggest of deals comes through as it has been announced that striker Luis Suarez is joining Inter Miami for the upcoming season. The 37-year-old joins previous teammates Lionel Messi, Sergio Busquets, and Jordi Alba from their Barcelona days. Suarez has agreed to a 1-year deal with Inter Miami with the option to a further year. Inter Miami are getting better and better, but what we have to recognize is that the league itself is also getting better and better. So, just give us your thoughts on this move and what it means not only for Inter Miami, but for the MLS in general.
Well, first of all, I think Luis Suarez is just going to terrorize MLS defenses. He, at his peak, was just head and shoulders above just about every other striker on the planet. And he really, he hasn't fallen off that much. He's lost a bit of pace, got a little older, a little slower, but his instincts, that poacher in the box, you don't lose that with age. And I think MLS is in for a terrible time with him. But yeah, this is a huge, you've reunited 2/3 of MSN. You have 4 ex-Barcelona players who are still very good players. It's insane for the league.
It really is, and you got to give credit to David Beckham. Some of the business doing out there, unbelievable. But we talked about this, and I was actually watching. It was one of the Overlap podcasts with Gary Neville, Roy Keane, Jamie Carragher, and Beckham was on it too. And he was saying that for Lionel Messi, when he came to the team, how much the way that he sees the game, everything just slows down for him in the MLS, because we have to be honest, the competition is inferior to the likes of Europe. So I think for Luis Suarez, even though, and I agree with you, he has lost some pace, he's got a little bit older, maybe he's not in the same physical condition that he once was, the game's going to slow down for him. He's going to score so many goals, and for the league, it's going to be an absolute nightmare, isn't it?
You just put him in the 18-yard box and just let him stand there for 90 minutes, and he will score you goals. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Inter Miami are going to absolutely tear up the league this upcoming year. Obviously, we're going to be doing our upcoming predictions in a couple of months' time for the MLS, but Inter Miami's got to be at the top of almost everybody's list, and for good reason. And in keeping with the MLS, another big transfer has taken place, and it's longtime Tottenham goalkeeper Hugo Lloris, who has joined LAFC on a permanent transfer. The 37-year-old will give LAFC another piece to the puzzle on their route to what will hopefully be continued success. Give us your thoughts on this one.
I think this is low-key a really good move for them. It wasn't long ago that he was captaining France to a World Cup, European Championship semifinals and finals. He's still a great goalkeeper. He's not Premier League quality anymore, but that happens. He's kind of aged out of that, but he can definitely still be a solid keeper in LA. And even if his performances on the field aren't, the best, just having someone like that with that experience in your locker room is just invaluable.
Well, and that's exactly it, at least in my opinion, too. You have somebody who has experience, who's done it. He's been to a Champions League final, like you said. He's done it internationally for France, and he's got captain experience. He's going to be a great leader for that team, and he's going to really show the way. Apparently, his training habits are outstanding. He's a total professional, and all of his coaches speak incredibly high of him. So I think for LAFC, this is a good move, and I think it definitely bolsters their chance to be incredibly competitive once again this season. Moving along, it is January, which does mean a multitude of things, a new calendar year, colder weather with some more snow incoming, as we saw here the past couple of days. And for all of us in Canada, I think we can definitely expect a little bit more. And it also means that sports for the next several months are going to be absolutely awesome. But even more than that, from a soccer perspective, it means that we enter into the January transfer window, where clubs will have the ability to buy, sell, and loan players as they deem fit. The summer transfer window was incredible, which we covered in complete detail here on Full Time. The last January transfer window was amazing, and we were even into that one more than we were the summer transfer window on our show. But the big question that everybody has is, what can we anticipate from this January transfer window?
Chaos again. It's just, it's you have 31 days to basically either, put your title charge together, keep yourself in the top flight. Like it's just gonna be insane. The rumors that we were already seeing are like ridiculous even for summer transfer like time, but like to have these rumors in January is just like stupid. And yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, and all the headlines that are being stolen, at least from what I see right now, are regarding Kylian Mbappe. So if your main headline, that everything that comes after that's got to be like somewhat good. It's going to be, as you coined it last year, silly season. And I love that one. It sums it up absolutely perfectly. So, it's obviously incredibly early in the window. We're only 3 days in. So we don't really have too many moves for us to go through, apart from the two that we just discussed with, Luis Suarez and Hugo Lloris. So instead, what we've opted for here on Full Time is to go through some questions regarding the transfer window, which will be really busy over the next 25 days or so. So the first question here, which 5 clubs need to do serious business this transfer window?
So for me, I picked a couple around Europe. My first 2 are kind of bunched together. It's Girona and Bayer Leverkusen. I think they need to just bolster these title charges. I'm not familiar enough with either of their squads to tell you exactly what they need, but you can never go wrong with more goals in your squad, or a better defender to concede less goals. I think that would be great for either of those 2. I think Arsenal could probably use some firepower if they're going to mount a title charge here, especially also competing in Europe. Probably want to add a little bit there. It's going to be like kind of a weird one, but like I think PSG probably needs to. Maybe not they need to, but they're just going to. You just know they are. And like that team is still kind of molding, still taking shape. So I think, if the right player, rumor is they're looking at Calvin Phillips, like I don't think that's a terrible move for them. Someone to just like the way Thiago Motta and like Marco Verratti kind of just did the dirty work for PSG for a long time, kind of out of the spotlight. I think Calvin Phillips could fit that mold for them perfectly. And then my last one is back to Germany for Borussia Dortmund. I think they're just kind of on the outskirts. I think they could still use just a little bit more. And they could, like we've said, this title race is pretty wide open. I think they could probably, if they add the right piece, like make a good push.
That was so well summarized. And I think that all of your picks there are fantastic. And I've got 2 of the same picks that you do, and I've got 3 different ones. So for my first one, and this is in no particular order, really, you can kind of shuffle it around in any which direction you want. But I also went with Dortmund. Their goal difference isn't particularly great, to your point. They need to focus on top 4, particularly if the Champions League doesn't go to plan. And they do need investments up front and at the back, with those 2 positions in the squad lacking in some regard, really. Second, I've gone for Sevilla. And the reason that I've gone for Sevilla is because, believe it or not, they're actually flirting with relegation. And, for both me and you, we really didn't see that coming. And they've already been bounced from European competition. They have no chance to get into the Europa League this year, which we've been accustomed year after year after year to so well there. And I didn't know this either, but they're actually on their 3rd manager this season. And you can't Yeah, you can't keep changing the manager. We're going to talk a little bit about being at the halfway point in the season. You can't keep changing the manager and think that something drastically is going to change. Something's going to have to change within the squad, and I think it's time that they turn to the players in the market. Third, I agree with Arsenal. That's my third one. They do need a fullback given the injury to Urian Timber, and because some of the other fullbacks aren't really cutting the mustard, if you will. And they do need another striker up top if they want to mount a title charge and to do well in Europe. Fourth, I've gone with Lyon in France, and because believe it or not, those guys too, they're in a relegation scrap. They've conceded the third most goals in Ligue 1, and they do need assistance up top for former Arsenal man Alexandre Lacazette, because again, good player, but can he really do it all on his own? No, and they do need to also shore up that back four so they're not leaking as many goals. And then finally, number 5, I've actually gone for Napoli. And the reason why is because there have been so many talks of how much they want to improve their squad. So I think if you're going to talk that much, you better go on and do it. They're talking about signing 1, a center back, 2, a right back, and they want to sign 2 midfielders this window. Typically in January, I mean, you get 1 or 2 pieces, not 4. So if they're saying that they want to get 4 pieces, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on them to see what kind of business they do. Right now, they're in a top 4 battle. They're on the outside looking in, and they'll want to push past Barcelona in the Champions League. So those are going to be my 5, Gaetano. We're going to move on here. Second, which team will be saying by the time that the window is over, after January is all wrapped up, that they did the best business?
This is gonna be like kind of a cop-out answer. I'll give you like a real answer, but I think City typically don't do business in January, or if they do, it's like they hit home runs. Aymeric Laporte, was a recent one. If they're going to do business in January, it's going to be great. And if they don't do business, then it'll be kind of business as usual, which is, is better than bad business. Let's put it that way. I'd rather no business than bad business. But I think Arsenal are going to do the best. Their transfer strategy for the last 18 months has been phenomenal. They've not made panic moves. So I think if they're going to, splash the cash, the rumor is Ivan Toney for, anywhere from 75 to 100 mil. If they do it, if they decide that's the play, I think that it'll end up being one of the best pieces of business.
Yeah, I agree. And there is a lot of talk about Ivan Toney and Solanke as well. And, all these sorts of things. In the case of Arsenal, they will have to splash the cash. Ivan Toney hasn't played in quite some time, so you wonder if Arsenal did get him, what that would actually look like once he sort of puts on the Arsenal kit and straps up his boots. But in the case of Manchester City, it's interesting that you say them, because the winner that I have, the team that I think is going to be saying at the end of the window, you know what, we've done it, is Newcastle. And the reason why I say that, and where I kind of draw the parallel between them and City, those are the only 2 teams in the Premier League, believe it or not, that don't have a player going to the African Cup of Nations or the Asian Cup. So, they're retaining pretty much all their squads, so they're going to have all the guys that they need there. But if City add in a few pieces, if Newcastle add in a few pieces, you could be looking at 1, Manchester City gunning for the title, which of course, they're already going to be there or there just about. And then Newcastle, not doing as well as they did last season, but we remember how good they did in the transfer window last January. I think that they can do it again. I do want to give an honorable mention as well to Aston Villa, simply because they're in the top 4 battle, and I think that the owners of that club are going to look at it and say, you know what, we've got a top manager here in Unai Emery. Let's give him a few more pieces, especially there's some rumors, not sure if it's true or not, that Ollie Watkins might be heading out in January. So if that is true, they're going to get a lot of money for that. They'll probably reinvest it very quickly. So I do want to give an honorable mention to Aston Villa. But I would say, to your point, Manchester City, Arsenal, but also keep an eye out for Newcastle. Third, which team might we look at by the time the window is closed, Gaetano, and say that they missed out on their major targets?
It's kind of sticking to a theme that they had last summer, but I think Liverpool. They lost out on a bunch of major targets last summer, and I think not that Todd Bowley's just only buying their targets, as a joke, but it's kind of, if a player's linked with one top club, they're probably linked with a couple of them. And I just have a weird feeling that if they get linked with someone, Chelsea's going to go in for them, offer that 10, 15 million more, and get that deal done.
Yeah, it was almost comical last year when that kept happening time and time and time again, because basically last January, I mean, we talked about it so much on our show. The transfer window essentially belonged to Chelsea, and we were talking about at the end of the transfer window, hey, who won this transfer window? it didn't matter whether we thought that the players that Chelsea brought in were good, bad, or indifferent. You had to say from a financial perspective, the amount of money that they spent, Chelsea won in some regard because they basically took all of Liverpool's targets. So you're going to go Liverpool. I think that's a great show. And I don't, for my pick, I'm not saying this to be condescending. I want to put that out there. I'm not trying to be, a bad person, whatever, but I actually think Tottenham's going to be the loser. And the reason I say that is because, and I empathize with this totally, because there have been years as a coach, where I've gone into seasons when I've had a really good team, injury happens, illness happens, injury happens, and the list goes on and on. So I actually do empathize with Tottenham as much as I despise them. Their injury list is insane, like insane. So I do empathize, but there's really no discussions about them bringing any players in. They're talking about extending, I think, Udogi's deal or something like this. But what are you bringing in to help your squad at this moment in time? You need players. And if discussions don't start happening soon, my big thing is they're probably going to start talking about it towards the end of the window. By that time, it's going to be too late to sign players because they're going to go elsewhere. So I'm going to say Tottenham are going to be the sort of losers of this transfer window. I want to give an honorable mention as well, and you'll appreciate this, to Manchester United. Is because, again, I do empathize. They're hit with some big time injuries as well. But I look at that squad, and I'm sorry, I actually talked about this with one of my teammates last night because we got back to playing locally, and there's not a single leader in that squad. I don't see it. I don't think Bruno Fernandes is a captain. And I think I actually like Scott McTominay and players like this, but are they really Manchester United quality? I don't know about that. So I think that they need to bring players in, but I have absolutely no confidence that they will. So I think that they get an honorable mention there. And fourth and finally, the last question. How much money will be spent this transfer window? Just to preface everybody on this that's listening and watching our podcast, last season, a total of $1.57 billion was spent in the transfer window, an insane amount of money. Just goes to show that there's no sport quite like it on the planet. But G, how much money will be spent this transfer window?
So unless Mbappe moves, which I don't see happening, I'm going to go just under. I'm going to say like 950, 975, but I don't think we'll hit $1 billion.
Okay. So I've actually gone in a different direction. I've gone for slightly over. I'm going to say 1.64 billion. And the reason why I said that is because, again, when I used to do the show with Scott, he always used to say off air, make sure that you reference the fact that you teach and all these sorts of things. And he would talk about his career. So I do teach for a living, and I am pretty obsessive when it comes to math and things like this. So I actually went across every major league in the world, and I was going with averages of all the teams in the top flight. And I averaged it out. And if the big moves happen like they're supposed to happen, among some other things kind of falling into place, I think that they'll just surpass the 1.57 billion mark. But again, it's down to chance. We're going to see what happens. But that's sort of my obsessive nature. G, regardless, we can agree there's going to be a lot of money spent this January there.
Yeah, it's just like an insane amount to think about, like every time. Like we're just like casually talking about like billions of dollars being spent.
Yeah,
like it's insane. I love it.
Yeah, it's wild, and money makes the world go around, but money makes the footballing world truly go around, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
A reminder that the January transfer window opened as of Monday, January 1st, 2024, and it will close on Thursday, February 1st at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And here on Full Time, in each of our upcoming shows, we will highlight all of the major moves made in the transfer market. So be sure to tune in to all of our upcoming episodes so you can stay up to speed with all of the things and all of the dealings in the world of football. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you are listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. On we go, folks, and we will now get ready to talk Europe's Big Five. Gitano, this officially marks the halfway point in the season for all of Europe's Big Five, which I always find to be incredible whenever we say that, purely because that means that we are slowly getting into the business side or the business end of the season where things are really going to start happening after January sort of concludes. Gee, how happy have you been personally with Europe's Big Five now that we are officially at the halfway mark this season?
I mean, like, even like the seasons could be terrible, and I'm still gonna be excited and happy with it because I love the sport, love watching it. So like the fact that we get like these super high quality title races, these like phenomenal sides all across Europe, like just like more than you could ever ask for.
It truly is, and it just seems like year after year we keep talking about it, just gets better and better and better, and we love to see it. So, G, we did our preseason preview back on August 8th, 2023 in the summer, where not only did we predict our winners for each of Europe's top divisions, but what each league would actually look like from a competitiveness point of view. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little bit of revision. We're going to go and revisit those discussions briefly, just to see where things currently stand in relation to those predictions in all of Europe's Big Five. So we'll get the ball rolling by looking at the English Premier League. And G, before the season kicked off, you said that the top four would be in this order. Number 1, Manchester City. 2, Arsenal. 3, Newcastle. And 4, Liverpool. I said that the top four would be 1, Arsenal. 2, Manchester City. 3, Liverpool. And 4, Manchester United. Now, when we look at the actual standings as of today, we've got Liverpool, who are at the top, Aston Villa, who are in second, Manchester City in third, and Arsenal in fourth. So, G, we really aren't totally off with our predictions, just barring one anyways. But a fun surprise there with Aston Villa being in this year's top four conversation and title challenge conversation. So your thoughts on the Premier League title challenge at the halfway stage, sir?
Yeah, it's funny that we both kind of had a different team in that one spot. You going for kind of the more, well, I don't want to call them established anymore because they haven't been established in about a decade, but United, and like myself going with the hot shots Newcastle, but it's Aston Villa surprising us all. They're just, I'm running out of words with them, Scarps. They're just so stupidly good. Like, I don't. I feel bad because like in any other league, they would probably be like not runaway champions, but like well ahead.
Yeah.
But they just happen to play in the most competitive league in the world against, competing against three of the biggest and best teams in the whole world in Liverpool, City, and Arsenal. It's been wild, and like the fact that fifth place Tottenham, they're only 1 point back. You look Brighton, only a couple points back from them. Like even Newcastle and United aren't like too far out of the the top four race. It's just insane.
No, it really is. And I mean, you even got to start looking at the likes of West Ham now. Are they going to be making a bigger push than they already have? And that's kind of why I gave in my the team that we might look at and say that they did good business in January. That's why I kind of give Aston Villa a show, because I really do believe that the owners will look at it and say, you know what, we might as well go for it. We're right there. It's not like we're just trying to get into the top four. This is a proper title challenge at this point. Once you get into the second half of the season, if you're in the top four, if you're within striking distance of position number 1, you are there. So yeah, Aston Villa has been doing brilliant this season, and I love this title challenge. It is really what makes the Premier League the best league in the world. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the bottom of the table, and in our predictions before the Premier League campaign kicked off, G, you said that it would be in no particular order, by the way, Luton Town, Wolves, and Everton, who would drop into the championship. I said that, again, in no particular order, that it would be Luton Town, Sheffield United, and Nottingham Forest. As we sit here, it remains Luton Town, so we both got that one, Burnley and Sheffield United in the drop zone. Gee, we know how funny the relegation battle can get in the Premier League, but halfway through the season, what can be said for what's happening at the bottom of the table?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to start with my Wolves prediction because I don't know what they put in their water at their training grounds or like what their coaches are saying, but they've actually been like it's an entirely different team from last year. Like last year, I was convinced they were going down basically until the last day. So I'm, pretty surprised to see them sitting pretty comfortably in 11th. I mean, even with Everton's 10-point deduction, like they'd still be bottom half the table. Again, like one of those teams, like they shouldn't be playing as well as they have been recently. I thought they would just, on paper, like they look really bad. I thought they'd be a lot worse. So I'm kind of shocked to see them out of there. And Luton not sitting rock bottom in the Premier League is probably the biggest shock for me. I don't want to say I thought they were going to have a worse season than that Derby team in like 04, 05, I think it was.
Yeah.
But like I thought they were going to give them a run for their money. I'm super surprised that they have gotten like the results that they have, even if they're still in the drop zone. I've been disappointed with Burnley. I thought they would, turn it around after a couple games. I thought, the way Vincent Company's been coaching them, I thought would translate a little better to the Prem, but it just hasn't. And Sheffield have just been a mess. That's kind of the only way to put it. I don't see a way back for them.
Yeah, I agree. And in terms of what I said, I put Nottingham Forest at the beginning of the season in there. I'm almost a little bit ashamed that I did, but now that they've done the managerial change, I do have to give credit where credit's due. They're on that new manager bounce, so they've gotten a couple of decent results as of late. I watched the Manchester United game in full when they beat them 2-1 late. That was a great result for them. You can tell that Nottingham Forest is doing a lot of things differently under Nuno Espirito Santo, but I actually think now probably if this sort of run continues, they'll probably survive. I'm still going to say that Luton's going to go down as much as I've loved watching them play this season. Sheffield United, I think they're still going to go down. But I think maybe if it's not going to be Burnley, which I hope it's not, we're going to maybe see somebody sort of slip. And it might be somebody that we may not even expect. Maybe, I don't think it'll be Crystal Palace, but maybe a team like that. Or maybe a Bournemouth or something like that. So we'll see what happens there. But right now it's pretty tight at the bottom, and we'll definitely keep tabs on it as time goes along. Serie A in Italy has kept us intrigued in a few different ways. In our predictions, Gaetano, you said that it would be AC Milan who would win it this year. Then I said that it would be Inter Milan who would win it. Only halfway through, but it is Inter Milan at the top. Juventus is narrowly in second. AC Milan is in third, and now Fiorentina is in fourth. So they kind of traded spots there with Bologna. Gee, it does sort of look like Inter and Juventus will be battling it out come the end of the season. But as we know in football, anything can change and anything can happen very quickly. So being at the halfway point in the season, what can we say about Italy's top flight?
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be a bit of a two-horse race here. As much as I liked AC Milan's squad this summer and going into the season, they haven't really shown it, their full potential yet this season. And I think at this point, with the way Inter and Juve are rolling, I just think it's a little too late for them. But if we're getting a two-horse race of Inter and Juve, that's going to be electric. So can't argue with that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And last year we saw the sort of runaway with just Napoli being at the top. If you're not going to have a runaway, it's best if you have at least two teams competing because you want to see some sort of title challenge there. So let's see what happens. And I do hope not for my prediction's sake, but just because of the Super League stuff with Juventus and all that, I hope that it's going to be Inter if anybody is going to win it. In Spain's La Liga, Real Madrid and Girona are top with 48 points each. Unbelievable. What a race that we have there. Atletico and Barcelona are joint second with 38 points each. Gee, we both said in our preseason predictions that Real Madrid would win it. We both agreed on that. But what a race that we have here from one of the most unlikely sides in Girona. What can you speak to here, my friend?
I mean, that's the thing. You expect Madrid, Madrid being in a title race is not, uncommon. It's pretty bog standard stuff. But the fact that it's not Atletico, it's not Barca, it's not even Bilbao or Sevilla or it's Girona. That's what? And again, the first couple weeks of the season, you're okay, they maybe had some easy fixtures, good little run of form, get some points in early. But now we're halfway through the season and we're talking about them, bolstering their squad for a title challenge. It's just insane. That unit is just phenomenal. A ridiculous game today. I don't know if you caught the highlights of it. Beating Atletico, I think it was 4-3.
Yeah.
They are dismantling and beating the biggest and best in Spain. I can't wait to see them do it on the European stage. I don't see them, knock on wood, dropping out of European spots. So I cannot wait for next year to see that. It's going to be incredible.
Absolutely incredible. And what you have to say to it, and credit to Real Madrid as well, to be both 48 points each at the halfway point, you're looking at that battle that year. What was it, 98 to 97 points in the Premier League with City, or 99, 98 or something like that. That's sort of how close, if things stay on track, that's how it's going to look like. And to me, that's absolutely unbelievable. Two great sides. And, at this point, it's a two-horse race, but I'm pulling for Girona. I think it's going to be unbelievable if they can continue this, in the second half of the season, and keep my fingers crossed for them, because what a story that would be out there in La Liga. In Germany, it is the Bundesliga that gives us yet another fun topic to discuss. We both predicted that Bayern would win it this year and do so with relative ease, we both said. That being said, it doesn't really seem to be the case at this moment in time, although things, as we know, can change quickly in football. It's Leverkusen at the top, with Bayern in second, Stuttgart in third, and Leipzig in fourth. G, there's still half of a season left to play, but do we foresee any changes happening here to possibly make our prediction of Bayern winning yet another title be correct?
This is a tough one because Leverkusen are playing so well under Xabi Alonso. Like, it's just I would say probably the best side in Europe at this point in terms of like quality of their play. Like, their style is just phenomenal, and obviously they're getting the results to back it. It's tough to bet against that, but it's also tough to bet against Bayern Munich because they just win the Bundesliga. That's what they do. So like, it's really tough. I think this is going to be another one that goes right down to the final game of the season like last year, and hopefully get some more fireworks like last year.
I totally agree. And like we talked about last show, I really can see, if you were to ask me, okay, Scarps, what do you think is going to happen 3 months down the road? I could see Bayern Munich putting all of those eggs, like I said, in that proverbial Champions League basket and say, you know what? This for us this year, this is our most important target. We're okay to come second in the Bundesliga. Heck, you know what? Stuttgart could even jump us, and we'll be okay to go third. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I'm still going to put all my faith into Bayern. But Leverkusen, what a season they're having under Alonso, as you said. Some of the football that they're playing, absolutely outstanding. So another good title race there out in Germany. And we're going to wrap it up here with Europe's Big Five by talking about Ligue 1 in France. And this is a place where we both agreed that PSG would likely win it so long as they kept hold of their top guys, which in large part they have. They are in first place at the halfway point, holding a 5-point lead. So again, not running away with it, but they are starting to create a little bit of a gap. Nice are in second, Monaco in third, and Brest in fourth. G, how likely are we to see things stay as they are in France's top division?
I think PSG will probably stay at the top of the table for the rest of the season. I can't really see that changing. They're starting to click into place. 4 wins in their last 5, the 5th game being a draw. Like, they're starting to get the ball rolling. I don't see them like losing that 5-point gap anytime soon. I think the gap is going to get maybe smaller, but I don't think they'll ever not be top of the league, if that makes sense.
It does make sense,
Yeah.
and we kind of saw them jump up and down and up and down. I think they are going to stay stable. They might drop a game here and there because that's going to happen in a title run. It typically doesn't happen where a team can rally off basically 16, 17, 18 wins in a row. It just typically doesn't happen. It can, but
unless you're Manchester City, it doesn't really happen.
exactly, rallying off 15 wins in a row like it's nothing. But I think that PSG are also going to keep hold of that there. And if you had to probably pick one of the title races that you had to pick an out-and-out winner at this moment in time, you'd probably say PSG in Ligue 1. So Europe's Big Five certainly has entertained us during the front half of the season. And as we know, things will only get more and more fun as time moves along in the back half of the season. And as always, we will keep you all up to speed with all of the happenings in Europe's top divisions right here on Full Time. And to round things out, domestic cup competitions across England are getting into the thick of it. Gitano, upcoming, we have got some big and fun contests starting in the FA Cup this upcoming weekend. There are 64 teams remaining in the competition, including all of the Premier League teams, of course. Are you looking forward to the FA Cup, G?
Love the FA Cup. One of my favorite trophies, which is like a weird one to have, considering like City have always gone for the Premier League, the Champions League, but like the FA Cup, it's just like, it's, I think, England's oldest cup competition. It's the biggest in terms of the amount of teams. Like, we're round 5, I think, right now.
Yes. So
yeah,
we're going the way that they phrase it is interesting. The final 64 teams, they compete in what's called the third round proper.
Yeah.
So I think it's technically the 5th round of play, but it's almost done in like a reverse order type thing. But regardless, 64 teams left.
Yeah, and the fact that like now we get the introduction of the Premier League teams into it is just, it's about to pick up and it's gonna be great.
Yeah, it really is. And for you, Gitano, is there a favorite FA Cup moment that sits in your memory, seeing as this competition, as you just mentioned, it's the oldest and most historic in all of British football?
So there was one for a very long time. and that was Yaya Toure scoring against United in the semi-final, actually, at Wembley, as City beat them 1-0 and went on to win our first trophy in 35 years. And kind of that was the beginning of, kind of what we know Manchester City as now, is these, these trophy-winning teams. But yeah, it was, United City at Wembley. Probably the biggest game to that point in the history of Manchester City. And yeah, that goal was just, it was the turning of the tide. Like, Manchester started to, turn a shade of blue after that.
Yep.
And then Ilkay Gundogan, last June,
Unreal.
that volley 12 seconds in, like, that was like, the stage doesn't get bigger. It's United, it's Wembley, it's the FA Cup final. He's our captain, and he just volleys on the top corner in 12 seconds. Like, every time I've seen that on Twitter since that game's happened, I've always said to myself, I will always have 12 seconds to watch that goal. Every time.
And you know what? We talked about it on our show this past summer, that I was in Petoskey at the time of the FA Cup final. So my team was playing in a soccer tournament, which we go to every year. And, we're getting in the group and saying, okay, let's all get into one of the guys' rooms to watch the game. So I'm walking down the little hallway to get to the guy's room, and a bunch of us walk in like, it's 1-0, it's 1-0. Okay, yeah, shut up. You're being idiots. Be quiet. Like, no, look, it's 1-0. Ilkay Gundogan scored with just 11, 12 seconds into the game. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I actually missed the goal, but it's just so historic. It truly is unbelievable. And, City were fantastic last year in that regard. For me, I would say, because Arsenal has been so good in this competition historically. I believe it's 14 titles that we've won FA Cup. I can go back to final after final when they played Hull. I remember Alexis Sanchez was just so good that game. But the one that I'm actually going to go to, and it's a bit of a weird one. 2020, when there was no fans, Mikel Arteta had just gotten the job a few months prior. Still had Aubameyang. We had a very tough run in the lead up to that final. We actually played against City, and then we ended up playing Chelsea in the final. And I was actually going through a pretty difficult time myself at that point in time, because I just lost my grandfather. And, about a week later, Arsenal ended up winning the FA Cup. And that kind of, it really made me feel good. And the performance that Aubameyang put on, and to win that sort of first trophy in the lockdown was just unbelievable. So that's kind of one that sits in my memory. But Arsenal have been really good in the competition. So I'm really looking forward to, they have a very tough test as well. By the way, they have to play Liverpool. It is at home, and we'll see what happens, but it's a tough first test to go. So I'm hoping that Arsenal will actually go strong and not play too many youth players, to be honest, because I want to see them get through. A reminder that the FA Cup, for all 64 teams that are in the competition, who again are competing in the third round proper, those games will go this weekend on your local television sports network, wherever you are, Canada or America or other. These are the one-off knockout games to see who will advance to the fourth round proper, consisting of the last 32 teams in the competition. And another domestic cup competition is what we discussed in our last show, and that is the Carabao Cup. Some pretty decent incentives and implications are on the line for the four remaining teams trying to claim a domestic trophy in February. The semifinal matchups, once again, are Middlesbrough, who will take on Chelsea, and it will be Liverpool, who will take on Fulham. Gitano, can we expect these games to excite us in the upcoming weeks?
Oh, they should be absolute limbs. I don't mean disrespect, but like, you have a couple smaller teams in these semifinals. Like, I think that the players will understand the occasion. The fans will definitely understand the occasion. And I think you're going to see, like 10 out of 10 performances from those teams. Whether it'll be enough to get them through to the final, that's another story. But I think the actual games themselves, I should say, should be phenomenal.
Yeah, and to your point right there, these games again, they are played over two legs. So we predict this last show that Chelsea and Liverpool will go through. If these are one-off knockout games, as we talked about too, I would say, just because to your point, and it's so spot on, that these two sides and the likes of Middlesbrough and Fulham, they're going to give everything. And I just saw Fulham play Arsenal a couple of days ago, and Arsenal worst performance of the season by far. But you have to give credit to Fulham, because you could tell them they're ready to go. They want to make something of their season. So these two games, which again are played over two legs, I think they're going to be phenomenal. So really looking forward to them. And the first of those games will go January the 9th. So in about 6 days time, probably about 4 or 5 days by the time that this gets released. And the second leg will finish up on January 24th. So we will get you all sorted with the results of those semifinals in our next episode of Full Time. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we wrap up to today's show and our first show of the new year, incidentally, we want to thank you for spending some time with us talking about the beautiful game. G, it's a great way to kick off the new year, and not just for today, but always. Thank you very much, my friend.
I know, and always thank you for having me. Like, yeah, this is if this is the milestone for starting the year, is this is the marker, is this episode, then like I think we've set the bar pretty damn high. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. What I'd rather have a high standard, because then if you even fall a little bit short, you're still doing really, really well. And I always preach that message to my players, my students, and even the guys that I play with. So yeah, I agree with you. We set the bar high, and let's keep this thing rolling. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of January 22nd, 2024. In that show, we will talk the January transfer window, Europe's Big Five, the results of the Carabao Cup semifinals, and a little bit more on the FA Cup. As always, we will keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of both the Game Sports Podcast and 91N on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Podbean. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91N. Best always.